fortune. Here on the fastest talent show ever, 30 Seconds to Fame. Nick Pawlow.
Hey, caveman, show me how to meet girls. It's easy. Just do as I do. Okay.
The ladies like that.
If there's any doctors here, psychiatrists, you've probably seen this before. It's the ink blotch, the psychological profile. I love you, Anne. So I'm going to show this to the caveman, and I want to see what he thinks this looks like. What's the matter? I'm talking to Anne. I want you to tell me what you see here.
Oh, let's see. That's a man and a woman?
Yeah?
They're doing it.
Okay. If I show you upside down, what is here?
It's a man and a woman?
Yeah?
They're doing it upside down.
So much for that one.
What do you think, Anne?
I'll show the audience.
Excuse me. What? Talking to Anne.
Okay. Now, what do you see here?
It's a man and a woman?
Yeah?
They're doing it. And the dog is watching. Yeah.
And the dog is watching.
Yeah.
You know, you have a dirty mind.
You're the one showing me the dirty pictures.
That the man's head?
No, that's lady's butt.
Oh, I can't figure this out. Did you explain to this gentleman? His name is Al. How it's going to work? No, I didn't. Okay. Now, Al, what I'm going to do is whenever I touch you on the shoulder, you're going to open your mouth. When I release, you're going to close your mouth. And also, you can move your arm up in the air and pretend like you're singing. All right? And I'll provide the voice. Is that okay? Oh, this is going to suck. No, it's not. Hark! I believe Brunhilde's about to cut one loose. Even me? Yes, she's going to sing. Well, then let us listen.
Hello and welcome to Landon Live, and today we have Nick Pawlow. Nick, how are you?
Very good, Landon. Thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you so much for being here. And Nick is known as the character with characters.
That's right.
Nick, can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be? Because that's a unique title as a ventriloquist.
Oh, well, maybe about 10 years ago, I started doing the scientist and the caveman bit. So I figured, I did take some acting classes, which helped me a little bit to try different characters out. So I did that, and then I was doing a burlesque character, like an old-time comic, where I'm actually portraying somebody else. And then basically my persona on stage is kind of a nerdy kind of a guy also. So even though I'm being myself, I'm still a character when I'm on stage, when I'm performing with the puppets.
I love that. I love that. How'd you get into ventriloquism?
By accident. As a kid, I had no interest in ventriloquism.
Okay.
I remember seeing Jay Johnson on soap, and I thought, okay, that's cool. When I was 20 years old, I started going to comedy clubs, not to perform, but just to hang out and watch the other comics. Excuse me. And then I started writing bits. I was doing bits for friends at work, and they said, hey, you should, do something in a comedy club. And I was 25 at the time, and I went to a comedy club on open mic night. I got hooked, and I kept on going back. And my act was visual, working with props. And then a couple months later, I said, you know what, I'm going to try ventriloquism. That's how that started.
Wow.
Self-taught. Yeah, went to the library, got some books out. Obviously before computers, and that's it.
Wow, that's super neat. So you said that you were writing bits for coworkers at work. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I was writing bits, but I would perform for my coworkers.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And a lot of it was R-rated, X-rated material, which I can't do and I won't do. But I did different character voices, and I worked with different props. My initial act was I made fun of movies, television, commercials, and I would bring out a prop and do something with it. And because I always loved visual comedy from my old days. I'm 60 years old, so I'm showing my age about watching Ed Sullivan, all the variety shows, and Laughing, Monty Python, and those kind of shows. And I think they influenced. Plus the old Three Stooges and Laurel Hardy shorts.
That's great. So you had those as influences to back you up. I love that. We have some comments coming in. Dan Satchoff said, "This is so great. Stoked to hear from one of the greatest minds in Vent," and I totally agree with that.
Thanks, Dan. Can I have your autograph?
He also asked, Dan also asked, who made your thinker character?
That's a Verna Finley. Actually, I have two statue puppets. Verna made that, and it's huge. It breaks down into two pieces, and that was made in 1988.
Wow.
And then Marianne Taylor made me a smaller version about 10 years ago, because it was hard to lug that puppet around. It was so big. Great character. I loved it, but I needed something small. I needed a downsize.
Yeah. It's Marianne's done some great work, and Melissa too, who is her daughter. Is taken up the mantle and done some. Dan just commented, "Is that mustache real?"
Yeah. I used to color it, but now I don't care what I look like anymore. Yeah, I used to actually dye my mustache and my hair, but no.
So it's interesting. The comedy and the ventriloquism is a part-time job for you. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Can you talk about how you got into that and how you did the balance and how you kind of dealt with that?
Sure. Well, for 36 years, I worked in the dental laboratory. If you don't know what that is, it's basically you're carving in wax. You're working with molds. You're making artificial teeth.
Okay.
And I've always liked to work with my hands. When I was in high school, I did wood shop. So in 1980, I actually made a clay head that I molded, made a plaster mold, two pieces, and I used liquid latex I poured into it. I think it's called slush molding process, where you form a skin. I used the wrong kind of latex, but the thing that I was sculpting was a zombie head. And that was my first character, even before I got involved with ventriloquism. So I made this zombie head, and I put it aside. And all those years, I worked in a dental lab. And when I started doing comedy, that's where I got that head that I made a couple of years ago. But for 36 years, I worked in a dental laboratory. Then the lab closed 5 years ago. And now, presently, I'm working in a machine shop. So I get to sometimes experiment with stuff. I'm not a machinist, but I work with the same kind of grinding and carving tools.
Okay.
Except I need metal.
Sure. That's neat. As a college student, I go to a local community college and I do shows on the weekends. What was it like getting into shows for you when you started ventriloquism and when you started, marketing yourself as this character with characters act?
Hold on, I'm gonna fix the light here. Hold on.
Sure.
I don't like the way I look. I guess it's a little bit better anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the first year I was hanging out at this one comedy club called the Comedy Factory out in Philadelphia, just appearing every Thursday night religiously, fine-tuning my act. And after a whole year, the owner of the club said, I'm going to give you a paid gig. So in 1986, I started working for this one club, and then other bookers saw me there, that I was working there, and they figured, hey, this guy must be good because he's working at the Comedy Factory outlet. Then I would get work from there, and it just sprang off. And I didn't really market myself. Booking people would come to me and, book me for shows. And then, I always had headshots done. So that's the only thing I had was a headshot, basically. Not really much marketing, maybe later on, like a business card. But I only started marketing, when the internet started popping up, I guess in 2000, 2001, something like that, where I really started putting together different websites.
Wow. What was it like being able to, what was your first bit that you were honing as a ventriloquist?
The first bit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it was with Happy the Zombie.
Okay.
That was the first puppet I used. And the first bit was really crude. I had no lip control, but I said, I've grown up with horror films my whole life. And I realized as a kid, if you can gross somebody out, you're getting attention. Maybe not positive attention, but if you have a big booger hanging out of your nose and you're walking down the street, people are staring at you, hey, I got some attention. So I use that, and that's a way of, I believe in comedy is, it's the shock value of making people laugh. So one of the first effects with the zombie was his eye would pop out, and it was on an elastic string, whatever, and his head would go back and forth, and it would bounce around, and then I hooked up the other eye for both eyes to pop out, and then I put in a spitter, and then I put in 2 spitters, and then I put in a can of shaving cream in his chest where it was like fake pus, but that was messy.
Oh, man.
Switched to silly string, so adding things, and then he had a little character in his hand, like a little rubber skull, and that was part of the act. So I just kept, building on the visuals of it, and then he had out of his head. So
Matt, did you ever find that there were too many visuals, or did you find that it only added to the bit and enhanced?
I thought it added because everything was spaced out. In the beginning, I didn't, it was all material, and then he would, say, I'm ready to sneeze. And he would sneeze and he would spray me, with the spitter. And then I would take out a handkerchief that was like preloaded with like fake snot on it. So I would hold it up to him and, blow his nose. And I would show the audience, the fake snot on the handkerchief. That would gross him out. And then we did the drinking bit where he would drink water and then sing at the same time. And then he would spit water on me again. So everything was paced. But at the end, everything like happened at the same time. The eyes popping out, the fake pus, the snot, everything.
Wow, that's interesting. How from honing it, you find out what works best for the character.
Yeah.
That's neat. So were you the scientist character, or did you play a character on stage when you had Happy the Zombie?
No,
or were you you had just started?
Yeah, I just played myself, and I had a friend of mine, another ventriloquist that passed away, Bob Magger, that was very influential to me. He said, you have a great character. You're playing this nerdy milquetoast, real calm, mild guy, and this puppet is spewing its bodily fluids all over you. And there's a video on YouTube of me at the Vent Convention in '87 when I won my first Originality Award. So it's on there with a different zombie character from the drawbridge, doing my act with all these things happening on stage.
That's an interesting thing you mentioned. Has Happy evolved over the years? He has.
Physically, he has, because there were actually like 3 or 4 zombie characters. Because I think I mentioned for the first zombie, I used the wrong kind of latex. I used a liquid latex that was used for applying prosthetic parts, not for casting.
Oh.
So over a period of time, the puppet actually started to look like a real zombie.
Oh, man.
And it got to the point where I couldn't use it anymore. But in '87, I was asked to do a video. And I think I sent you some photos of a green, ghoulish kind of a zombie. So that puppet was used for a video in 1987 called Mad Ron's Previews from Hell. It was a horror compilation of horror movie trailers, and I co-hosted it with this puppet. The producers wanted a puppet that was actually like kind of grisly and ghoulish looking. They didn't like the other puppets, so that's where that transition took place from the stand-up comedy puppet to the video puppet. And then I went back because I wasn't getting laughs with the really ghoulish thing in the comedy club. It didn't click. So
that's interesting.
Been a couple of different zombie characters.
Yeah. So is it in the detail of the zombie that you had to kind of pull back from? Had to make it more like a puppet and less realistic when you talk about the ghoulish part not working out? Yeah,
well, the ghoulish puppet that was green was like really creepy looking. It worked great for video work, but for stand-up comedy, it didn't work. So I ended up sculpting a head that was similar to the original head. That was kind of simple, whatever, generic zombie, nothing really like crazy or ghoulish,
Sure.
So, and it kind of worked. And then I started branching off with other kind of puppets, more like mainstream characters, more or less. You know, away from the horror. Even though I did do the headless guy in 1990, and that was. It only worked well at the convention because it was such an inside joke to have a puppet with no head. But everywhere else it bombed, and people didn't get the inside joke of it. And that character was given to me by a guy by the name of Bill Nelson, who's an illustrator. I met him at the convention.
Yes.
And he gave me that. Bill Nelson gave me that idea for the headless puppet.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a Bill Nelson, and I credit Bill for that. He said,
That
"Nick,
is
you can pull
perfect
this
pairing right now, right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Bill
is
Nelson and
awesome.
that idea, and
Yeah.
to you,
I love
it's
Bill Nelson. Yeah.
that's neat. I can imagine you using it as like a like a kid, like a carrot top, just pulling out a bunch of random puppets and this isn't gonna work and throwing it throwing it back. That's hilarious. How would you define your comedy style? Are you like set up punch? Are you situational? Is it more crowd work? Is there some crowd work? Is it kind of like an amalgamation of everything?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've never been asked before. I think it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
'Cause originally I didn't really do any audience work unless there was a heckler, but I didn't really like work with the audience. But then like later on, I started bringing people up on stage, like you saw with the opera bit. The caveman that I use, he'll like try to get some reactions from a woman and try to, with a little like romantic thing that's happening. A lot of times it's just me and the puppet having an argument back and forth. Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's like a mixed soup of everything. It's not like cut and dry punchline joke. It's like it's all over the place.
Well, that's an interesting thing because you get a character, and either you see one or you have one made. Has it always been that you've had something made because you love these horror films, or you're inspired by something, or what's your process for coming up with a character?
It's varied, actually. Yeah, like with the zombie puppet. Excuse me, I had the head and I made the zombie because I've always loved horror films, and the zombie was like a natural form. First puppet, most people, it's like a generic Danny O'Day or some Juro thing, or it's a cheeky boy. With me, it was a zombie, and it was okay. And then I tried to come up with a regular cheeky boy character, but it didn't click with me. It just didn't work because I had a Conrad Hartz figure, and it didn't work. I ended up using other people's material, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I actually started using David Strassman's material at one point. It's like, no, I can't do this. I can't do conventional with a wooden cheeky boy, whatever. And I always, came up with an idea before I actually had a puppet made, for the soft puppets.
Yeah, let's see. We have a comment from Bob Rumba. He's saying, Landon, ask him about the pig on the platter.
Oh, the pig on the platter. Yeah. I had a pig on the platter in 1993, I think. And that was another time I won the award for originality. A guy by the name of Jay Krishwara sculpted it for me. It was cast in foam with a latex skin.
Okay.
And, yeah, a very cool puppet. And I used that in the convention. And it was also limited. It didn't really click with the comedy club audience. I did better at the Ventriloquist convention than I did anywhere else. It was a fun character. The voice was sort of like Lou Costello from Abbott and Costello, because that's what I wanted, that kind of a voice for it. And unfortunately, over a period of time, the character dried out. Oh. I couldn't use it. But now it's in the collection.
Like the puppet or the bit?
What's that?
I said the puppet or the bit? The material or the puppet?
The puppet. The puppet actually dried out. And it was only like a 6-minute act. I never really added anything to it. But the puppet's in someone's collection right now, which is pretty cool, because I was sitting here collecting dust. If I have a puppet and I don't use, unless it's a collectible, I will sell it. It's like if somebody can use it, fine. But
that's interesting that you talk about the pig on the platter being something that went over well at convention. Why do you think that was? Because you talked about the headless puppet earlier. Is it because it's just something so different and it's like an inside joke type thing? Or?
Yeah, because I don't think the audiences were not ready for me then. Maybe they're not ready for me now in some of the characters I use. So like with the headless puppet, that was an inside joke because, in ventriloquism, what's the most important part of the ventriloquist character? It's the head, it's the face. That's where that dictates what the character is. And here I am bringing out a puppet with no head.
Yeah.
But I proved a point that you could still have a personality and a voice without a head. You don't need the head. It's the depth of the character and the dialogue that you're using with it.
It's genius. It's like it sounds like a challenge. It's
Yeah.
like a it really is. It's neat. It's like a challenge against your own creativity.
Thank Bill Nelson, because I keep on, I bring up his name because he gave me the idea. So,
But I'm sure the writing process for that was like, what do you do? Where do you start? It's like one of those
wow.
things. And can you talk a little bit about starting? Because I think today we have there are some unique and well-known ventriloquists out there, but there's sometimes we find a lack of creativity or originality. Could you talk a little bit about creating a character that's unique to you and how you approach it from your standpoint?
Yeah, I've always tried to have a view of like 360 degrees of everything that goes on in our world. What could you use for a puppet? I think like Clinton Detweiler would put anything on the mouth, whether it was a bottle or a plastic baseball bat or a cereal box. He would put a mouth on just about everything. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, I try to find ideas like outside of the vent world, like when I came up with the Sasquatch, that was based on like the Harry and the Hendersons.
Okay.
Just there's so many ideas you can get from just other cultures, other societies, things like that. I once had an idea for a cannibal headhunter. I never did anything there. I'm giving away an idea. There you go. Start writing it down. But I never did anything with it. But I have the caveman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I get my ideas from nowhere and from everywhere. I just they pop into my head sometimes.
What was interesting, and I was watching your caveman bit earlier, and we used it as the intro, is that when you introduce the caveman, you kind of have this Jay Johnson-like approach where you're talking about who he is and kind of the backstory, and then the comedy morphs with not only the puppet, but how the puppet is reacting to you informing the audience, which is neat.
I actually learned a lot from Jeff Dunham in 1987 because I had when I started Vent, I had no influences. Like most people, when they're growing up, you have this person you look up to, that too. I had no influences. The only ventriloquist I knew was this one. Mm-hmm. So when I saw Jeff Dunham doing a presentation, he did a lecture on I believe it was manipulation. He had a monkey character. And he brought the monkey out, and the monkey was just moving around without saying a word. He was getting laughs. And this is the first time wow, it's more than just ventriloquism and throwing your voice. It's about manipulation and pacing and just puppetry. And that's where, like with the caveman, I start off with that, where I'm talking about the caveman, but he's not saying a single word. So Jeff has been a main influence on that, along with like other people that we see at the conventions, like Jay Johnson and Ron Lucas, and also trying to think, my mind went just blank. Dan Horn, Jim Barber is a major influence also because I love his stage presence. Even when he's in the audience, he's just
Jim's great.
Yeah. These are the folks that that I admire. And also like David Strassman also. I'm a big fan of Otto and George. I don't know if you know who Otto and George is.
I do. I know Otto and George.
Yeah, Otto is the only ventriloquist that I've watched where I actually tear up and I have tears coming out of my eyes. That's how much he affects me,
Yeah.
And I did know him. I met him a couple of times. We've had conversations because he used to come down to Philadelphia to perform, and I would watch him.
Cool.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was funny.
Yeah. The closest person I know that has his type of humor is John Peasy.
Yes.
It's working right now. It's Peasy. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure they knew each other before he
passed.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah.
We have a comment from Dan Sashoff. He said, "What's your favorite horror movie?"
Oh, pick a decade. I can't name one. if I say favorite horror film from 1930s is probably Bride of Frankenstein. 1940s is probably Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. 1950s is probably Horror of Dracula. 1960s is probably Psycho, and Night Living Dead, which is 1968. 1970s is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. 1980s. I don't think I have anything favorite from the 80s, but those are my top favorite horror films, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, rattle them off because I know in my heart, So. Love them. Love this.
Yeah, Dan just said 80s.
Okay.
So, there we go.
They're a blur. I can't think of anything. Oh, Beetlejuice. If that counts. I don't know. That's a comedy, but horror.
Well, here's another question. Dan's the only one asking questions on here. So, do you have any bits written that you've never made a puppet for? I think Dan Satchoff is running low on material. So give him some ideas.
I have done that. And the weird thing is I don't really write dialogue for any of the puppets, whether I have them created or not. But I have, I guess the term is bullet points, where I write my material in my head and I picture myself sitting in the audience watching myself performing with a puppet. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, the audience point of view.
Yeah. And I'm watching myself with a character and I'm thinking of the dialogue, and then I'll just put down bullet points, like 3 or 4 words. Yeah. And I'll, and I'm not a genius or anything like that, but that's the way I've always operated. I've tried to actually write down, what the vent says and the figure says, and I can't. It's like, it throws me off, I think dialogue has to be heard, whether you hear it, audibly or in your mind you hear it. But when you write it down, it loses something. So that's just my opinion, but that's the way I've always operated.
Wow. So you've got like kind of bullet points of what the next bit is, so you don't forget. But
yeah, just a couple of words. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, neat. Could you talk a little bit about Verna Finley? Because whenever I have someone on here that has characters of hers, she's been a big inspiration to me as a puppet builder, and it's always neat to see how people came in contact with her and what she's built for them.
Yeah, met Verna at the conventions. I saw her work. Marianne was there, but she wasn't as prominent as she is now. And I came to her with the idea for the Thinker statue. So, and she was very cordial. And here's an interesting story. I don't think I've ever mentioned this before. When I came up with the idea for the caveman, I went to the library. I actually got like an old book that had illustrations of Neanderthal characters, and I Xeroxed them. I sent them to Verna. I said, Verna, I have this idea for a caveman puppet. I don't think anybody else has a caveman puppet. She says, yeah, someone does have a caveman puppet. Who? Jeff Dunham. And she sent me a photo of Jeff's character or whatever. It was totally different from mine. And you can see Jeff's caveman puppet. I think it's on the Adrian Brody film Dummy. It's in the extra.
Okay. Really? Wow.
He never used the character. But I thought, I got this great original character. But no, but Jeff had a caveman puppet before me. But as far as I know, he never used it. But there was a clip of it in that one, like the extras on the DVD for Dummy. I think it's called Dummy, right? With Adrian Brody.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
pretty sure it is.
And then she made me a backup caveman also, Verna. At that point, her daughter-in-law Tina Finley was working with her. I think Verna wanted Tina to like follow in her footsteps.
Okay.
But I don't think it worked out very well because I think Tina was there at one convention, but it just didn't click. I guess I don't know.
Right. Sure.
So
that's interesting. So you've gone to conventions since they had the first convention. Is that right?
No, they've had the first conventions in '74, I think.
What was your first convention?
87.
Okay.
Yeah, 87. Yeah.
What was that like for you? Were you new to Vent, or when you went into it, or had you already been doing the clubs?
Well, I was doing the clubs in '85, but '87 was the first convention I went to, and it was amazing. Just seeing other events, seeing the stuff that was available for sale. If I would have known then what I know now, I would have bought so many different things. I would have brought like a ton of money and bought all these old collectibles that you can't touch for like under $3,000 anymore.
Yeah.
But the museum was like the catalyst. When I saw everything that was at the museum, that blew me away. I mean, I started thinking about other characters, and it was at a later convention where I came up with the idea for the statue for the Thinker, because I saw no one else has a statue puppet. And then I did actually some research. What are some of the most famous statues? All right, there's the Venus de Milo. There's something called Winged Victory, which is a statue with no head, no arms, but it's got wings. Well, all right, we're going to throw it. I'm not going to use that one. And then the Thinker. So, I try to do some homework about that. And, that's how I came up with the Thinker. And nobody had a statue at that point. I don't think anybody has a statue puppet now. I don't think people have some like a head bust. But as far as I know, nobody has a statue puppet.
You're the only comedian ventriloquist I've ever seen with a statue. So you find the comedy within the history of when you were writing for the statue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. That's neat. I love that. We have a comment here. Let's see. Glenn Pierce. No, it's Glenn this time. Glenn Pierce. He said, Nick, how did your acting classes influence your act?
Oh, you got to ask Dan Satchoff. It's a major influence. I took only a handful of acting classes. One was at Walnut Street Theater. Maybe Dan's heard of it. It's like the oldest acting theater I should say in the United States, I guess, whatever. But I took like 2 or 3 basic classes, 2 at Walnut Street Theater and 1 or 2 at community colleges. But it was like years ago. But it made me feel more relaxed. It made me more just more aware of how much you can go into depth into character and just about timing and pacing, and also about characters, because I love Dan's character of I forgot the name of the character where he's the Cub Scout leader. I'm talking about. I love that.
Scotty Matthews and Samson.
Yes, I love that character. But that's where I felt like the walls were breaking down, where I can be more energetic on stage, and it's helped me. I haven't taken acting classes in a long time, but yes, they do help. And I would say for all ventriloquists to take some kind of an acting class. They may say, well, I don't want to be in a play, or I don't want to do any kind of dialogue on stage. Well, no, you take a class in either in voice or movement or both, or improv or beginner's class, an introduction to acting, and it helps. You have to give it a chance.
Wow, that's great. Could you talk a little bit about? We talked a little bit about Verna. You talked a little bit about how some of your other stuff you've got. I referred to it before the interview as textured characters. Yes. There are a lot of different textures and very, very unique amongst what is typical for a ventriloquist to use. How do you determine who's going to build what? When you had started, or when you were collecting these characters to add into your act.
Wow. Okay. Well, the zombie, that was something that I made. Soft puppets at the time, Verna was like the go-to person for soft characters, and then Marianne Taylor, took over for Verna, and then you have these other figure makers. There's yourself for soft puppets. Barry Gordner.
Gordner.
Then you got Jet puppets, and then you have other figure makers, and each one has their own style. So it all depends what you're trying to get out of the character. As for hard figures, the prices are kind of high, but if I had the money, I would probably go with like an Austin Phillips to do custom work, or Tyler.
Tyler Ellis.
Yeah. But there's other, I've always loved Conrad's work also. I have one Conrad figure, and I had a previous Conrad figure that I got rid of because it didn't fit my act. So,
you had a bit with a pink elephant and
I forgot about that. That was a Verna. That was a Verna, and that was the first time I actually did 2 puppets at the same time.
Oh, neat.
I had a drunk puppet, Harry, which is a Conrad Hartz. And the most difficult part, we talk about acting, is that Harry, the drunk, could see the pink elephant. The pink elephant could see both of us, and I had to ignore the pink elephant. So think about that. So
Oh
you're doing a voice for the
man.
pink elephant who's commenting about me. He's
Mhm.
talking to Harry the drunk. Harry drunk is talking to the pink elephant, and I have to ignore what the pink elephant. It was stressful, but it was really fun to do.
Yeah.
But I just dropped it. I don't think it was stressful. And again, as I said, if I don't use a puppet, I will get rid of it. And some lady in Arizona that owned a place called the Pink Elephant Theater and actually ended up buying it. So I guess she
Oh,
did
cool.
shows or whatever. So I don't know whatever happened to her or but yeah, it was a cool character.
Dan Satchoff is asking if there's any videos of that.
No, the only video I have is a private video of me practicing in my basement
Mm.
doing that act. That's because I set up a video camera, and I'm practicing in the sweaty t-shirt in my basement with the pink elephant, and the pink elephant had a voice almost like a Mel Blanc Warner Brothers voice.
Okay.
And Harry's voice is just like a slurred drunk voice. But I need to see if I can find that video.
The bit sounds hilarious, and the characters, like that elephant is one of the prettiest puppets I've ever seen. And then
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite Conrad Hart's creations too. It's hilarious, and I'm sure there's photos of it out there. And I'll also post one later on. But that's hilarious. But and also mentioning the whole fact that the audience feels like they're in on this joke. It's like an inside joke with the audience, and the fact that you can't see the puppet. I can't imagine having to rehearse after you learn how to be a ventriloquist, and it's all about your connection to the puppet, and then having to separate that.
Yeah,
man, that's
one of the reasons why I dropped it is because the persona of a pink elephant that only a drunk would see. It sounds like it was something from like maybe the 30s to the 1950s, where it was like more prevalent. And in recent society, people don't know about that character unless you're a certain age. And I think maybe that was one of the reasons why I dropped it.
That's another important thing, is knowing your audience and knowing when when a bit is no more. It's better to move on.
Move on, exactly.
Could you talk a little bit about the convention and how you've seen it grow over the years, and what you had taken from it? You talked a little bit about the dealer's room, but
the convention has grown, but it's changed because all the people that I knew, that I admired, a lot of them are gone. Like Bob Isaacson, Johnny Main, Bill DeMar, to name a few. Pete Michaels, Al Seamock, that older generation, and people from my generation that were doing club work, and hearing stories, like Peter Rich when he went to the convention. I like the old school style. I love the history of ventriloquism. That's why I was more comfortable hanging out with like the older guys that had been around, show business for the longest time. But I see a lot of, I haven't gone to a convention in 3 years, but you see a lot of younger people. So it's more like a fresher, vibrant feel to it.
Sure.
But, it changes. There's people that you go to a convention and then all of a sudden they disappear. And then there's other people that haven't gone to a convention, then they reappear. So it's changing.
Yeah. That's a great way to sum it up. Do you have a character with you that you could bring out?
The only thing I have, because everything is in storage because I'm not doing anything, is I have the head stick, or I should say the neck stick for Rip, the headless guy. That I can show you. I have it right here. So you have to, let's see, where is that?
Let's see if we can make you.
Okay.
There we go.
So you have to pretend there's a body there, but that's Rip, and that's how he talks.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, it's live. Where am I? There I am. Okay.
Who was it? Did you build that, or who built it?
I built that, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was built in 1989, December, and I even put my name on it. It's made out of Durham's water putty, which is a plastic wood.
Okay.
And how there's the why is it? I'm having a problem with the camera. Oh, okay, there you go. So there's the moving part.
Yeah.
There's the bulb. I love putting bulbs on things. I don't know. This is for the smoker. You can actually put a cigarette in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can put a cigarette in there and
Oh,
smoke.
that's
You
hilarious.
can't do that anymore, well,
No.
with smoking. So, and that was
Yeah.
for a
It
spitter.
has to be a vape.
So he would smoke and spit and talk. So,
Oh, neat.
yeah.
Talk about adding character to something that. Wow. So did you play the scientist when you had him on stage,
No,
or what was your?
I played my own nerdy self.
Okay,
He was,
cool.
yeah,
That's super.
yeah,
That's super neat and original.
yeah.
And the detail. I mean, from afar, you get enough. I mean, with the movement of that piece in the middle. But then when you do a close up of the severed head, it's the paint job is great, and there's a lot of different, a cascade of different colors.
Oh, thanks.
It's really neat.
Yeah. I tried to get like a flush. Actually, I thought of Conrad's work. Well, Conrad's got like an orangey, flushy,
Yeah.
tan look to it, and I decided to go with that. But there's maintenance involved. If you get a pinhole or a leak in there, then you got to try to find where the leak is, where you have to,
Yeah.
replace that or whatever. But it was fun while it lasted, anyway. So but that's the only thing I managed to get out of my suitcases back here. So just that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Super neat.
Okay.
Let's see. Donald Woodford commented, and you said you're not a genius.
No, Don's a genius for all the woodworking that he does, all the intricate details that he puts in all this. That scroll work is amazing. I'm surprised Don's not making like figures and things like that.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. Mark Berriman commented and said, Nick, you should be at the convention to help represent the generation you're talking about.
Oh, well, there's other people from my generation, that have been doing it a lot longer than I have. Like one of my greatest heroes when it comes to the history of ventriloquism is Tom Ladshaw, because Tom's been doing this since he was like 14 or so, and he knows the history of vent. It's like he's just someone that I admire and I look up to. I'm a late bloomer. I started when I was 25, and most vents at 25 were already doing it for like 10 years or so. So.
And then we also have Dan Satchoff also commented, is he wearing pants in the video with you and Harry and the elephant?
Yeah, I got pants, yeah.
And then Donald Woodford said in response to your comment, he said, I know my limitations.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. You talked a little bit about convention and the new generation. What do you hope to see from the new generation and future ventriloquists?
So far, everything seems like people, including yourself, you're seeing people that love what they're doing, number one, are good at what they're doing, and are creative at what they're doing. I like your work. I'm going to mispronounce her name. Hannah Latovsky?
Yes, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay, but she gets it. She gets it, because the first time that I saw her at the convention with the unicorn, Marty, half of the audience didn't understand what she was doing, and that's a good sign, because when you got half of the audience not getting it, you're getting it. And I had the same reaction when, a lot of times when I've done weird stuff on stage, the older people won't get it, the younger people will get it. And to me, that's a good indication. I mean, if everybody loves it, yeah, that's fantastic. But when you're doing cutting edge stuff and some people are like looking at their husband or wife and not getting it, I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's something that you should be proud of, because you're going into uncharted territory. You're creating something new and unique and original that stands out.
Yeah, people are looking to their spouse and going, "Where's her cheeky boy? What's going on?" Yeah, that's hilarious. Dan Satchoff commented, "Is it true that Landon is a Barry Gordimer creation?" No, it is not true. The rumor is not true. I'm not symmetrical enough. Let's see. Mark Behrman's. No, we already went on that comment. Gina Meter is watching. Welcome, Gina. Do we have any other questions for Nick before we go? Let us comment below. Dan Sashoff said, "Let's do a Midnight Madness experimental show at the next convention. It could be a laboratory for new talent."
Oh,
That's really neat.
yeah, good.
That or even a lecture. I
Yeah.
mean, you have so many different, you know, the funny thing for me as a puppet builder is I've got so many different ideas that I want to build on
Yeah.
and show to the public, but I don't. It's like they're not ready for it because it's not what's been done before.
Yeah.
And so I always love it when people try different stuff with my work that I put out, and when I see other people picking up stuff in the dealers' rooms.
Yeah.
I always love to see people do that in the lectures. That's a great idea, Dan.
There was one year they actually had an adults only show at the convention.
Oh yeah.
It was a midnight show, and everybody went up, and they wouldn't let any kids in, and people did X-rated, foul, dirty material. But one convention, yeah, which was cool. It was different, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's going to happen again, but I like Dan's idea of the experimental thing. I don't know, it has to fly past the people that run the convention if it's going to be acceptable or not. So.
Mm-hmm. Bob Rama commented he has a book. Do you have a book?
I do have a book. You know what? Give me your address. I'll get you a book.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, like after. Yeah, I put out a book. I did a lecture on creating original characters. It was a workshop, and I wanted something that people could take home and look over, and it's my ideas, and it's illustrated. Tom Ladshaw helped me put it together. The book is available through Tom Ladshaw and Lee Cornell. They have it. But yeah, after we're over, give me your address. I'll send you a copy.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the book is over creating characters.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Super neat. So, and where can the people that are tuning in, where can they go to find it? On
Tom Ladshaw's website, and also Lee Cornell. They're like the two distributors of it.
Awesome. Donald Woodford said, "Stay good at what you're good at, and leave the rest to the professionals." Yeah, that's good. You know your limitation. No, he's talking about him as a hard figure builder. The delay in the responses is hilarious because you're like, what is he talking about? Well, that's great. Nick, thank you so much for being a part of Landon Live and for sharing your tips on creativity and just a different perspective and approach to this art. It's truly neat to see the like you said, Hannah and Jeff Goltz is another one of them.
Yes,
and all these new up and coming talented ventriloquists trying their own style and growing with it. So it's
which is good. New blood. We need new blood.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to those of you that are tuning in. And we have some more Landon Lives coming up, so make sure that you're following the Landon Live Facebook page, or you're following me on Facebook, Landon Harvey. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for being a part of this, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you.